Okay.
Mm,
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Germana here with us, and she's like most of us out of life. And of course, we have all of our fair share of life's trials and tribulations. Hers have included a challenging childhood and an eating disorder, addiction, being a single mother on welfare, living with chronic back pain, being challenged with low self esteem, and a lack of confidence. This resulted in feelings of self loathing and pain, and then turned her life around. So she's thankful she was gifted with people who gave her support and permission to believe in herself. And this gave her the courage to strive for more than mediocrity. And of course, these people are earthbound angels. Germana, we are so excited to have you here on the Holistic Sister Circle. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. And also, thank you for just allowing me to be human today. I appreciate that too.
I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you and hopefully inspire others to find their joy, create their joy.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we start here, that was a mouthful, of course, but can you just share a little bit about if you were to go back in time to the person that you were
Mm.
and you had a moment where
Mm.
you could share something of wisdom, of inspiration to just continue to keep you going, whatever that age was at that time that you were like, man, I'm grateful I did this because of where I am today. What would you say to young G?
The the message that I often reflect on is I did a meditation when I was in my early 20s, and I was brought into a room where we all did this piece of meditation, and we were supposed to bring our little girl or a little boy a gift. And my little girl loved strawberries, so I brought a basket of strawberries. And she was standing by this beautiful oak tree, and she's wearing a white dress and Buster Brown shoes, and she was about 2.5. And I handed her the berries and was supposed to ask, like, what would you like from me? And she leaned forward, and she was just this beautiful little angel, and she touched me on the thigh, and she looked into my eyes and said, just love me. And at that moment, all I could do was start to cry because I realized the one thing I had never been taught was how to love myself, how to care for myself, how to be congruent in a way that this mimicked that I had value or any worth at all. And my whole life based after that was giving that little girl what she never got, which was compassion, love, connection, education, play. And the thing is at this square in my life, most of the qualities of my life have been around me asking, is this good for me? Is this good for that part of me that is beautiful, that is precious, that is scared, that has been shamed, all of it. And then being able to really kind of have that sort of like a beacon. Is this in alignment with that, or am I selling out because of fear? So ultimately is that I have your back and I'm going to take care of you. And that was something that I was never taught. I was very my parents were mentally ill, so they couldn't teach me that I had any worth or value, and they were both offspring from World War II in Europe. And so we were immigrants. We moved here. And so the piece for me is how am I showing up for me? Because I'm very good at disassociating and making it about someone else, caring for them, which was a survival strategy as a little girl. And as an adult, that destroys our life because we go, who am I? What am I? Who is this for? But that one that just resonates. I have goosebumps when I talk about it because there's this beautiful little girl it was basically turned into garbage by her parents, and then somehow had to resurrect, and then decide I'm worth saving. My life matters, and then that's sort of what I share with other people in my own way.
Well,
Mm.
no, well, one, thank you for sharing that because I know that that's not an easy one, it's not an easy thing to share, but then two, it's also not an easy thing to go through.
No,
And not only did you go through it, but you grew from it and you allowed it to be a part of your story in a way where it pivoted you to the next stage. And the next stage I would love to talk about is now you being a mom. How has that transpired into just being a mom and what you essentially tolerate from yourself? Would you tolerate from your child now? Like what does that look like?
well, my son's 32 now, so he can carry me around the house like a doll, and I'm like, "You let me down." And I gave him everything that I never got, and he didn't have the awareness of how much it meant for me to be able to do that, because I did raise him primarily as a single mother. And there were areas that I checked out because I overworked, because I didn't know how to protect us. So I didn't know how to do healthy relationships. It wasn't taught. So all I knew is stay safe, make money, so the wolves don't come to the door and take everything that you've got. So how it showed up for me was I was a fiercely independent mother. I worked way too hard. I worked way too much. And I hurt my son because he had needs that I didn't know how to intervene, because no one taught me how to do that kind of emotional literacy and emotional vulnerability. I didn't have those tools. I still very much embodied my parents' um, hardness. That was very much a part of me, and I didn't know it until later and later. And my son, he's a very successful entrepreneur who has his own home on the mainland and has done very well for himself. He's made more money in a short period of time than I will ever make in my life. And so it's odd, it's strange. All we have is each other, because the rest of our family are kind of not there. They're gone. We're basically kind of orphans, but we show up for each other. And one of the things that I really impressed upon my son was that no matter what, he's enough, and that he's smart enough. He didn't do well in the school system. He was labeled with learning disabilities and ADHD, and he would punch himself in the face and say, "I'm so stupid." And I would say, "No, you're not. Your brain works different. It doesn't make you stupid." This education system only, it only, it only is really designed to support visual learners. And if you're not visual, then you've got a problem. And my son was he had a very series of challenges. So I was just said, "You're wired different. Your brain is faster than most people's brain, and you're not stupid." And I did everything I could to support him. And what was so strange was he couldn't properly read or write until the Harry Potter books came out. And all of a sudden he
Uh,
started to rapidly read, and it was like the doors opened. And he struggled and I struggled, and he had trouble with addiction. And, at some point in my life, I took the door off of his bedroom door and said, "I love you. And if you want to destroy everything I've invested my whole life in, you get to do that, but I'm not watching. I'm not taking your front row seat." I said, "Lose my number until you're ready, and then call me." And he did. He's had over 5 years clean and became a multimillionaire, which is great. But it was on his own volition. He did it himself. And I said to him, "No matter what, I've made mistakes, and I love you, and I can't change what happened because I didn't know how to do it different. I had no other way of being. I didn't know how to do it different." I said, "But I can't take back what happened, but I want you to know how precious you are to me." And so whenever I can show up, I just show up, and I got his back, and I'm his number one fan. And it's been an interesting ride.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And I feel like what's really great about what you're saying is too, because I talk to so obviously we talk to so many people,
Okay.
and one of the things that we have had a few conversations with on the show are mom and daughter relationships, but we haven't actually had one with a mom and son relationship, and how, and obviously, for one, kudos to you because he saw your work ethic. He saw what it actually was going to take to be successful no matter what you were doing in life. And not only that, he saw how much you supported him regardless of what you believe to be true or what expectations you may have even had on yourself. You didn't allow whatever was going through your brain to interfere what he came to do here on earth himself. So I just, I'm grateful for that because especially for men, I think it's so important just as women and, whether it's a mom or a spouse or it doesn't matter, but we learn how to just support our men and really show up for them in a way where at the end of the day, the answers are already inside of them. But do they have the support? Like that's so important, especially for today. Like, do our men truly have support? And do they have support around from the women that they love and the women that they admire most? So I definitely want to give my kudos to you for that. And I would love for you to just share, how are you able to put yourself in a position where you still showed up with something supportive to say?
Very cool. Yeah. I needed to reduce any judgment or shame or blame and recognize that no matter what, that was the closest he had to loving himself and operating. And he was kind of drowning in front of me. He was drowning, right? And, I have a spiritual practice. I was taught that quite a long time ago. And so part of that practice is in the morning, I'll light a candle and I like externally or very silently have a prayer, and I might do some meditation or some breath work or something to attune myself to the fact that I'm more than my mind. I'm more than my thoughts. There's a soul here, and that he's a soul that came through me and that we have been together many times. And sometimes I would silently, even pre-dreaming, like I would send energy to him. Or I would say, I know that there's assigned angels to this soul. I am now requesting
Mm.
that you show up because this soul now needs to
Oh,
have an intervention. And it's usually just happens. Like I get goosebumps when I say it, but I've done it.
I'm getting goosebumps while you're saying it right now.
Yeah, it's like it's true. And whenever I've just done that as an energy of light in this body, and I go, listen, I need whoever is assigned to him to now step in. And then usually within 24 hours, it would change. Um, and I just recognize that whatever we don't resolve now, we can check out and pass away, whatever, but we have to then deal with that next time again. And I do believe that because I also have done a lot of spiritual work and regression work and past life regression and all the rest of it. And there's these soul agreements. And when my son was born, he was born on Mother's Day, which is wild. And I knew that I knew him. Like I just went, oh shit, not you. And about 2.5 years later, I went to my teacher and I said, help me understand where I know this soul from. And she goes, I usually don't take those kind of requests, but okay. And, we went into that life script and what I was and what he was and what his role was. And he was dying in my arms in this scene. I was a man and he was my stepfather who had rescued me because I had been orphaned, which is just interesting. And he's bleeding out, dying in my arms. And I'm praying, please don't die. Please don't die. Please don't leave me. Because if you die, I'm done. And in our last words, as we die, before we die, as we die, and after, and the emotions create the imprint for the next incarnations. And he says, I'll never leave you. I'll be with you always. And that on a soul level tied us together. And I just came home. He was a toddler, 2.5 years old. And I just got on my knees and I hugged him and held him. And then I'd have many other times where I'd known, oh, that's my son, but it's in a different body. Oh, that's my son. And so I kind of have that sense of I call it forbidden knowledge, but it's and it's undeniable. Like if you ever talk to someone who's had a past life experience and they live and they tell you all these wonderful things and they have a different perspective. Well, that level of courage stays with you. And I think
Mhm.
in the case with him, there was lots of times I say to him, if you choose to check out, you choose to check out, and I will love you anyway. So it's not like you can manipulate me into groveling, and it's still your choice. But I'm here for you, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm still
Mhm.
so there wasn't like, don't be so stupid and don't be so bad. And I
Right.
think to people like they think that shaming somebody or they're shaming their behavior will inspire them to stop it. And it doesn't. It drills them deeper into it,
Right.
into their own self-loathing. So I mean, it had a lot of those kind of experiences in my life. And I just have this belief that we don't own anybody. And that whether I pass away or my son pass away, our love will always be there.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean there wouldn't be huge grief. There would be huge grief. But then it's kind of like, be grateful for the juice that you got out of this orange. So I kind of learned to detach, probably to protect myself.
Mm.
And I've watched a lot of my friends bury their children. At least a dozen people around me bury their babies because their babies got into drugs and overdosed and died. So I've seen it. And then, the next year you see the anniversary of the death and the next year. And I just go, oh God, thank you God for that not being me. But it could have been. And there's no proof that one day it won't be.
Right.
Mhm. So we probably have an unusual relationship. Yeah. And he was the only thing that came for me that was perfect for me. Like I remember when he was born, his little toes, his little face, his little fingers. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. My body made this. It's perfect. And I really loved being a mom. Like I'm still a mom, but it's different now.
Yeah.
It was one of the most scary and rewarding times of my life because I fought for him in a way I would never have fought for myself. I dragged myself over, crushed glass and coals to try to give. I mean, I did it for him, so I would feel that I hadn't betrayed him, but to give us a better life because I came from, severe poverty and um, a very dysfunctional family that basically treated people worse than you would treat a dog.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I,
Wow.
I just never wanted to see my child suffer the way I did.
Yeah.
Mm.
Ooh, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. I've learned so much. Now, for anyone who would love to just connect with you further, want to learn more about just how to deepen their spiritual relationship, what that process may look like, even working with you, could you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. I Part of my healing journey was to try to figure out how to heal the emotional baggage because I did lots of talk therapy. I always said I did enough talk therapy to turn a donkey into a unicorn. And at some point, I was like, I need to understand how to unpack it so it doesn't live inside of me and impact my ability to make decisions. So I became a hypnotherapist and I had about 8 years of mentoring with different doctors that did hypnotherapy. So the spiritual work is like they say that our inner child is our subconscious mind, and our subconscious is also fused with our soul. So I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and the website that I've recently had created is www.hypno, HYPNO, the number 4, and then health.co. And that's, we're not in, sorry, I have no idea what I'm going to check for that. Sorry about that. And um, that's one way to reach me for kind of spiritual work. And what I do with that is I help people reconnect to their deeper self and I call it your hidden self. Like Tony Robbins calls it the giant within. And, some of the teachers that I was always like, what's the truth?
Mm,
Want to be true, but what is the truth? How do we reduce it? Because then our actions they have more value. They're not just like trying to figure it out through this maze. And, I hope this works and I hope that works. And I needed to understand when I was in integrity with myself and when I was out of integrity with myself. And so I was attracted to that. I was attracted to that variation of soul work because it made more sense. And like I said, I did a lot of therapy and I
mm,
stopped hurting. And then once the hurting got out of the way, then I wanted to give myself what my parents couldn't give me and what my coping mechanisms robbed me of, which was dignity and choices and education, because I was a very tortured little girl. And yeah, and I wrote a book about it, and it's going to be relaunched. I'm going to shut this off again. It's going to be relaunched again with a sort of updated version, but it's all about recovery from trauma, generational abuse, and the healing journey. I'd had a couple of psychics tell me I was going to get movie requests for it, and I'm like, okay, well that's exciting, but who knows? I don't know. I let go. I just believe you do the footwork and you let the universe handle the details.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's all we can do.
yeah.
Well, G, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity just to get to know you a little bit more, know your family a little bit more, and just really not even just your family, not just you though, but just the things that you went through to help build the next generation, which is what you had and have in your son. So I'm certainly grateful for that. And yeah, let us know more about your book when it re-releases and share
Yes.
it with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.